Hey everybody, I'm Brian from the Brian Riley team. I'm here with Kelly and Jen. We're excited that you're joining us for this webinar. We want to jump right into it. So Jen, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Okay, we're going to talk tonight about some of the challenges that we've been facing in today's market, and some of the solutions that we've come up with that may help with that. So if we move on to the next slide, we'll see. So there's plenty of challenges that the buyers are facing in this market. High interest rates are something we hear every day. We're on the phone with buyers. They're waiting till interest rates come down to actually do anything. Decreased buying power with the high rates. They have less ability to be purchasing at a higher price, and that really is affecting their search. We have low inventory. We don't have a lot of homes on the market right now. Not a lot to show people. And then the economic climate. I think there's a lot of hesitancy behind the economic climate, whether or not we're going to go into a recession, jobs changes, things like that. So, and then also we have the challenges that are being faced by the seller. So on the other side of that, we have high interest rates also. Same thing, it's affecting buyers' buying power. So decreased buying power, second point there. Accessing existing equity. So they're not able to access the equity in their home until they buy a new property and get out of their existing home. And then logistics of that also.
Okay, let's talk about interest rate. So many of you guys probably have a lower interest rate on your current house. But when you want to move up, when you want to upsize, it's the interest rate that the most important thing to consider. Just don't get intimidated by the 6%, 7% right now. We can always refinance a few years later when the rate calm down a little bit. And don't get stuck in the mindset that you will be locked with this rate for the next 30 years. Not many people actually will stay in the same house for 30 years. And according to the prediction right now, the rate is going to drop in the next few years, but we're probably not going to have the interest rate in the 2-3% for a really long time. It's really hard to time the market. Nobody can really predict when the lowest point or highest point is. So one other thing that we can do right now, like we're going to talk about the solutions later, but just for the buyer or seller right now, is focus on your affordability, calculate your budget, and make sure the estimated monthly payment works for you. Then it might be a good time for you to step in the market. And next, we're going to talk about inventory. Low inventory is a great thing for sellers, but what about buyers? If you're thinking about buying right now, you might already have started searching on Zillow and realizing there are not many choices for you. As we all know, there are not many houses available on the market right now because the rental market is strong and because of a series of economic reasons. So now we have high demand and low supply in the market. We might feel like, oh no, I'm stuck. How can I buy a house in this market then? Well, for buyers now, you can just focus on, figure out your affordability, your criteria, and your agents not only can show you the houses that you like, but also can create supplies for you by reaching out to more people in the area that you like. But that's just one of the solutions. Brian's gonna go more in depth later when we talk about solutions, and Jen is gonna talk about economic climate right now.
So the economic climate, like I mentioned a few slides ago, it's jobs are changing. Companies are not hiring as much as they were in previous years. It's making people a little uncomfortable. Obviously, we're not sure if we're going into some kind of recession. People are speculating, which always seems to be the curve. But the last couple of years with the hiring that was going on and things were on the uptick, it is making people a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, there are solutions available to the home buyers and sellers. So Brian will go over these specifically, but we have 2-1 buy downs, points, lease with right to purchase, renting your next home, recasting, renting out your current home, borrowing from your retirement account, or buying off market. Okay,
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Jen. Thanks, Kelly. Yeah, so I mean, we talked about all of the problems. Obviously, there are problems, there are challenges out there in the market. There's challenges in every market. But right now, those challenges are kind of right in the face of a lot of people. So, but there are solutions, right? So like Jen just mentioned, 2-1 buy downs. Just going to give you a quick kind of overview of each one of these. A 2-1 buy down is simply when someone is buying down the interest rate. Now with a 2-to-1 buy down, it's typically the seller. So this is a good tool for sellers. And again, if you're on this webinar, watching this webinar, you're probably selling your current home and buying your next one. Think of the 2-1 buy down as a way on the seller side that you can incentivize buyers, or that you can help buyers maybe to come to your price point, by offering to take a little bit of money out of those proceeds and buy down the interest rate. So the interest rate would be 2% lower the first year, 1% lower the second year, and then by the end of the second year, that rate's going to zero out, right? So let's just say that the rate is 6.5% right now, and a seller's doing a 2-to-1 buy down. They have to put a few $1,000s out of their proceeds to buy down the buyer's rate. So their rate is going to be 4.5% the first year, 5.5% the second year, and then it's 6.5% at the end of the second year. The idea there is, the buyer can probably refinance when those rates go down. We're calling it points. It's basically the same concept, although this is typically the buyer opting themselves to spend a little bit more money upfront to buy down their rate. And it's not as structured. It's not a 2-1 type of thing. It's going to be for the life of the loan. And this has always happened. This isn't a new thing. People didn't pay as much attention to it before, because it wasn't that expensive, even without buying points, or paying to get your rate down. When the rate was 2.75%, it didn't. Why would you need any lower than that, right? But now people are starting to notice it. So we'll go over some stories. I'll give you some examples of our clients who have actually done that, and kind of how and why. Couple other options here, right? So maybe just buying, even if you can get the interest rate down 1 or 2%, maybe that's still not enough for where you're at in your situation right now. But you want to move. There's options out there. You can go and find a house that's on the market available for sale. We have a partner company that will come in, they'll buy that house and they will rent it back to you for up to 5 years. Just a normal 1-year lease. You can renew it up to 5 times, but at any point during that 5 years, you can purchase the house from them. It's kind of a pre-negotiated, predetermined sales price. The rents are kind of pre-negotiated and predetermined for the next 5 years. So that's a really good option as well. And hey, you can just straight up rent your house. If you can find a good house that's available on the market, somebody's got it listed for rent, you can always go out there and rent your next house, sell your current house, and wait until the market changes if that's really what you want to do. Not going to be the best solution for everybody, as really probably none of these are across the board the best solution for anybody and everybody, but you really have to look at what's going to be right for you. And our job, the first thing that we're going to do is sit down with a client when they call us and they say, hey, we're thinking about buying. Where do we start? We need to sit down. We need to do this financial analysis. We need to do the needs analysis, and we need to talk about what their options are. These are all your options. A recast is when you, let's say you buy the house first. You're still living or still owning your current home, but you're buying your next house before you're selling. You're putting a minimal amount of money down, whatever the minimum that you qualify for. Let's say you're doing a 5% down conventional loan. You've got all the equity tied up in your current home. You move into the new home, you sell the old home. Let's say your proceeds from the sale of that home is $100,000, and you want to put that towards the new home that you've already bought. You don't have to refinance. You don't have to worry about, are the rates higher now than they were 2 months ago? You wouldn't want to refinance that quickly anyways. But what a recast is you putting a larger sum of money down on the property, on the principal balance. They're going to re-amortize, which means they're going to restructure the payments. So you can actually make it as if you had put 10 or 20% down, whatever that higher amount or that new amount, that lower principal balance, you can restructure the payments based on that, just like you had done it originally. So in a case like that, a seller may end up making, or I should say a buyer in this case, may end up making 1 or 2 or maybe 3 payments at that higher amount before the recast goes through. They put that lump sum towards their principal balance, and then that payment goes down. Kelly said, the interest rate's probably not the most important thing when it comes to your affordability. It's really easy to get stuck on that number, but what's really important is just that monthly payment in general. So looking at that monthly payment and looking at your options, what do we have to do to make the house affordable to you? I know people who have decided, hey, we have this property at this, low rate, low mortgage payment. We hate to get rid of it. The house would rent for $500 or $1,000 more than what our current mortgage payment is. We think we might just hold on to it and rent it out and continue to build equity. The market is still going up right now. Homeowners are still building equity. So, while it might make sense in some cases to hold on to your existing property and build equity, it's one thing to do that while you're also gaining cash flow, right? That's an investment term. People that are investing in real estate specifically for the investment opportunity or the income opportunity, they're looking at cash flow. That's that $500 margin between what your house is renting for and what your mortgage actually is. So if you could bring in an extra, even if it was $300 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month, and have somebody rent out that house until you get to a point where you feel like, okay, the market is where it is now. We're kind of at a peak. Let's sell it right now. Maybe the interest rates are down again, where that old interest rate doesn't look like it's going to be too difficult to part with. I always tell people, if you're interested in being a landlord, generally, it's going to be better to sell your primary residence when you move out of it, because we can probably go in a lot of cases and help somebody buy 2 or 3 investment properties for the amount of money or the amount of proceeds that they're getting from the sale of their primary residence, right? And 3 properties, even if the rent's lower, usually you're going to have, by the time you add up all 3 of them, you're going to get more of a cash flow from 3 properties than you are from 1 property. However, if you've got a really low interest rate and an owner occupied loan for your primary residence, then maybe it does make sense to hold on to it and let that cash flow and let that equity build up for another year or 2. Again, not going to be for everybody, but there's a lot of people out there that is working for. Same thing with borrowing from a retirement account. A lot of people's retirement accounts aren't really doing too well right now, as Jen said. It might make more sense for you to say, hey, you know what? I know I'm going to need a place to live. I know that, real estate is a pretty secure investment. Maybe I'd rather put the money there. And you're either doing a withdrawal, a distribution, or in some cases, you can borrow money from your retirement account and put it back. You want to talk with your financial advisor about that and your accountants and all of that. Again, not an across the board solution for everybody out there, but we know people that have done it. When I bought my first house, granted it was my first house, I wasn't selling a house to buy one, so a little different than your situation if you're watching this, but it was 2012 and I had money sitting in a retirement account that was losing every month, and I said, I'm never going to retire if I'm still renting my current house, right? So I'm going to take the money out of the retirement, invest it into a home, and then I'm actually doing more to set myself up for retirement than letting the money sit here in a 401k and lose money. And then buying off market, right? So this is a solution. Forget about all those other things. Remember when I said there's challenges in every market? Even last year, the year before that, when interest rates were low, we still had buyers having a hard time finding homes. Even when affordability was high, there was more demand and more buyers out there looking for homes and not as many homes on the market. So we've got a system in place. We just did a webinar on it last month where we can help you find a home before it comes off the market and have an opportunity anyways to negotiate terms that might be more favorable to you and your position, terms that could help you save money or could factor into your affordability, maybe something like a 2-1 buy down, or maybe it just has to do with the logistics of selling your current home and buying your next one. Again, in any market, that's always going to be tough. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about real examples of people who have actually made this work, right? It's not just us presenting random ideas on a screen. or on slides. We are real estate agents. If I didn't say that, we're a real estate team. We help over 100 people a year. This year we'll help 150 people with buying and selling homes. A lot of them are just like you, looking to buy and sell at the same time. We've got Jason and Peggy right now. It's not their real names. Names are changed to protect the innocent. But Jason and Peggy, they are relocating here to Pittsburgh for a job offer. They're coming from another part of the country, actually. So we're helping them on the buy side, but not the sell side. But I think their story is still a valuable one. They were someone that decided that their interest rate on their primary residence in the state where they're coming from was too good to walk away from. So they're holding on to that home. They're actually going to rent out that home to a tenant. Their income qualifies them to have both mortgages, so they can have the mortgage here and the mortgage on the house in Georgia, and they're cash flowing from that house in Georgia. In their case, they didn't even need to do points or a buy down. We just needed to get really specific about what areas they could afford based on property taxes and things like that. Really narrow down on where they were going to get the most for their money in terms of their budget. We found them a great house that was probably $100,000 under what they thought was their max. And because that payment fit so nicely into their budget, they didn't need to worry about points or doing a buy down. Now, they can still refinance that interest rate though in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whenever it may be that the interest rates do go down. Steve and Danielle, another great example. We actually used this story last month on our webinar about buying homes before they come on the market. And I'll probably use it again on other webinars because we just love this story so much. They wanted to upgrade. They wanted more property, more privacy. We found them this home off the market. Hadn't come on the market yet. Sellers were thinking about selling in the very early stages. And we reached out to them at the right time and said, hey, have you had any thoughts of selling? If so, we have a buyer that would love to make you an offer. And the seller said, great, we'd love to have an offer without having to put our house on the market and do photos and keep the house ready for showings and open houses and all that. The buyer was able to use a physician's loan. So he's a doctor. That's a loan product that's available out there with a lower interest rate. I was going to say slightly lower, but I think you could probably say it's significantly lower interest rate for doctors, nurses. There's other programs out there for law enforcement. Of course, there's VA mortgages. All of these things, all of these mortgage or loan products that have benefits to the borrower, such as lower interest rates. Now, these guys had a home sale contingency. So, right, going back to logistics, they had to sell their home in order to use the proceeds to buy this one. They could not qualify for 2 mortgages. Because we had found them the house before it came off the market, we weren't competing with any other buyers, at least not directly. And the seller was willing to agree to that. Seller wasn't worried about taking their house off the market if we weren't able to help them sell the buyer's home, right? So one of the big problems that sellers have with the home sale contingency is they don't want to accept that offer, take their house off the market away from all the other buyers. If your house is the buyer, if the buyer's house doesn't sell, right? The seller doesn't want to be in that position where they've lost 2 months of time and now they have to put the house back on the market. In this case, the house wasn't even on the market in the first place. They were 2 or 3 months away, so they had nothing to lose by that. It actually was great for all parties because we were able to put a contract together with all the terms, do all the negotiations within a longer time period. And who else do I have here? Donna and Rob. Donna and Rob wanted to get closer to their grandson, and they wanted to not really downsize. They were in a small house, but it was like a split level. There was some stairs. They wanted something that was all on one floor, and again, wanted to be closer to their grandson. So they actually sold their current home, and then they stayed with family short term. Once we found them a home, they looked at their budget, they looked at their payments, and they ended up paying a little at $793, a little under $800 up front, and they were able to lower their monthly payment by $50 a month. So not everybody out there is going to think that it's worth spending an extra $800 up front just to lower your monthly payment by $50. In this case, these guys are on a fixed income, and $50 a month, made a difference. That's $600 a year. Maybe that $50 a month is, an electric bill or a cable bill or something like that, right? If you're on a fixed income and your budget is that tight, $50 a month can make a big difference. They had just sold their house, so the 793 wasn't a big difference. And what we did with them is we said, well, how many months of $50 a month is it going to take you to add up to that $800 anyways? In other words, if you just put that $800 in savings and took $50 from it every month and put it towards your higher mortgage payment rather than spending it up front to buy down the mortgage payment, how long would that $800 last? And it was, what is that? It's like close to 2 years, right? 20 months would be $1,000. So it was a little bit less than 2 years. Hopefully at the end of 2 years or sometime within that 2 years, they can refinance. Hopefully the rates will go down. If not, their payment is good where it is right now. And if it's, 3 years from now, 4 years from now, it doesn't matter. They've got a payment that they can afford. It fits within their budget. And when it comes time to refinance, when the rates go down, great. They'll be in an even better position than they were now. But they didn't want to be, strapped for cash, even if it was only just at $50 a month. They didn't want to lower their grocery budget by $50 a month to try to offset that and sit there every single month and just pray that the interest rates go down so that they can afford to, to eat again. Nobody wants to do that. Jay and Melissa, another great one. They wanted to get closer to family. They wanted better schools. Their son was, I think, 5, just getting ready to go into school at the beginning of the year. And that was it. That was all they knew. They didn't care necessarily about the interest rates. They were aware of it. They were aware of how it was affecting their affordability, but they weren't going to keep their son in the school. They weren't going to enroll him in the school and have him start going to the school that they just weren't comfortable with him being in. So they knew that they had to do something. We found them a home. They were able to purchase it with a home sale contingency. They paid their rate all the way down to like 4.79%. They were not crazy about the idea of refinancing ever. They had some money saved up front. They wanted to put it towards, paying down that interest rate and getting an interest rate. I don't know when, if ever, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. We don't really know. I don't know when it's going to get below 4.79%. So these guys are probably set for a while. I had another client around the same time. I don't have a slide for them, but they were paying like $15,000, I think, out of pocket. Now they had sold their home, so they had a good bit sitting in the proceeds, but they were also buying their rate down from like 6.75 all the way down to 4.75. Reason being, their monthly budget. They simply could not afford to have that payment be that much higher on a $400,000 or $500,000 loan. At a 6.5 or 6.75% interest rate. They needed it to be lower. They had a little bit of money now. Again, they could have saved that money, paid that extra little bit out of that account every month, but we determined that their break-even point was like 21 months. And if the rate didn't go down in the next 21 months for them to refinance, they were going to be in trouble. And they weren't okay with that. So they figured, let's just buy that rate down right now. So people are doing that. You can buy that rate down to anything you want. A lot of people don't know that. Where's the break-even point? It's just math at that point. And that's something that between us and between our lender partners that we work with and that we refer a lot of our customers to, that's something that our clients are able to sit down and come up with a plan that's going to work for them before we ever even go out there and start searching for houses with them. You can call a lender, you can go online to Rocket Mortgage or something like that. They'll pre-approve you and say you can afford $400,000 a month or $400,000, but they don't tell you what that payment's going to be every single month, right? A lot of our clients, they know or should know, what their budget is every single month, and then we can kind of work backwards and see what their options are from there, narrow down on a price range, determine what's actually on the market in that price range, or what's out there that would be in that price range if it was on the market, but maybe it's not on the market yet. And then we can go find it and find something that works for them. So that's pretty much it. Who wants to close this out? Is that Jen?
Yep, I'll close this out. So what is the next step? Schedule a consultation with a member of our team. We can help you. We can talk more about your goals and helping you reach those goals. Thank you for joining us tonight, and hopefully these things can be implemented for you.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Yeah, thank you. Do we just leave?